Hello, patrons! Welcome to the set of Idiot Tale. Guess what? It's my apartment again. This is actually where Sona's spaceship was, and we built a podcast studio here for an Idiot Tale shoot that we did yesterday, and so I kept it up as a set for this. No, I just haven't taken it down yet, but it was already lit, so boom. Perfect vlog space. And I believe that you are all witnessing Ashley Clements' very first vlog. Isn't that nuts, considering all the other things I've done on the internet? But I believe that this is the first time that I have vlogged as me. Hello, you're all witnessing history. So I got a lot of great suggestions about what my vlogs could entail, and I'm taking a prompt from Ellen Brosius, who suggested I talk about my writing process. Process sounds like such a structured word for what feels like such a mess to me. I'm still such a new writer. I've really only been writing for the last few years, but I will tell you what that looks like for me. I didn't go to school for it. I went to school for acting, and so I was never taught a specific sort of process. But what I have done as an actor is study a lot of scripts, and so I learned a lot about structure by kind of experiencing it. And then, of course, I read some books, and I've listened to a lot of podcasts about other professional writers talk about their processes. When I was first starting to write, I was listening a lot to a podcast called The Moment by Brian Koppelman, and he is the showrunner of Billions, which is not a show I actually watch, but I really enjoy listening to him interview other writers. The writing ones where he was talking to TV and film screenwriters really helped me kind of figure out my own process, because I kept hearing over and over that you got to write in those early morning hours, and I think that's a great time to write. I do try sometimes to write in those early morning hours, but sometimes that's not possible because of my schedule, or because that's really the only time I can motivate myself to work out. And then what? I only get to do like one thing that's really hard today because I can only manage to do hard things when it's in the morning. No, I had to figure some more stuff out. I think now I've developed the skill to be whenever I really sit down and force myself to do it, writer, which I think is a really valuable skill. When the ideas are flowing, when inspiration strikes, it's the easiest thing to do in the world, but something that Elizabeth Gilbert talks a lot about in an excellent book about creativity, Big Magic. Can't recommend it enough. Love Elizabeth Gilbert. She talks about how there's that spark of idea, and that's the easy part, but then the majority of writing is sitting down and forcing yourself to do something boring. And that the real magic of being a writer is that discipline. And that is the thing that probably took me the longest to develop. Most professional writers that I know say they don't actually do more than a few hours of writing a day, and so I give myself that permission. And I started by really following advice. Lauren Graham talks about this in her memoir. It's called Writing on the Hour, and you turn off all your devices, and you turn off your Wi-Fi, and the only thing you're allowed to do for that hour is write, either on the project you're actually writing on or handwrite in a journal. That's it. That was a really good way for me to get started, and it was kind of like learning to meditate. Like, the goal wasn't to be good at it, the goal was to sit for the allotted amount of time. And if I sat through a full hour and didn't cheat and look at Twitter and or find myself in the kitchen making myself a snack, then I had succeeded, because I had sat for an hour and did not let myself do anything other than try to write. Much like when I first started meditating, and still sometimes when I meditate, I set a timer and it's just, well, you know what? I sat here. I did it. I showed up. What I've gotten increasingly good at is showing up. And some of the things that have helped me with that are doing Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, which is a 12-week program where you basically write every day, but you write what are called morning pages. And I've actually kept this practice up for the last about 6 months. You wake up first thing in the morning and you do basically a brain dump. You just write everything and anything that's in your brain. You don't try to make it anything. It's not a script. It's nothing. It's garbage. It's getting all the anxieties and other thoughts in your head out. And sometimes there are ideas in there, but it's just about writing 3 longhand, full 8.5 by 11 pages, and then you're done with it. And I find often that afterwards, I feel not so concerned about all the stuff that was buzzing around my brain. And that's the idea, is that you put it down on the page so you can kind of get it out of the way so that you can focus on your work. But I don't always immediately then transfer over to doing my work. Sometimes I then go and do a bunch of other stuff. But when it comes down to sit down to write, I write at home. I cannot write in a cafe. And it's not just because it's distracting. It's mostly because when I write, I come at it from an acting perspective, right? So I'm doing it all out loud. I was working on a really dramatic scene and I was killing time between auditions in a coffee shop, and I realized I was doing it out loud. And I was like, well, I can never come back here again. So I usually work at home. I turn off all distractions. I will turn off my Wi-Fi, and I will just force myself to write. And sometimes it's a time period that I set myself, and sometimes the goal is a page count. And sometimes the goal is I need to fix this scene. This scene needs to be rewritten. And I set that goal, and sometimes that takes up so much brain that when I'm done, I'm exhausted. And sometimes that kind of gets the juices flowing in a way that I feel like I can keep working on another thing. I write out of order. There's this great diagram that I hope I have the skills to put right here in front of my face on the camera screen. Good. And according to this, I'm kind of a chaotic plotter. So I do like to have an outline. I like to know where I'm going. I like to know the structure of things. I like to know what a scene needs to accomplish. I also like to be surprised by where things might take me. But because I have an idea of what scenes need to be written, and I will do that kind of like note cardy thing, I will often write scenes out of order. I'll write what's easiest to write because it gets the juices flowing, that then makes it easier sometimes to write the harder scenes or something kind of unlocks. Another tip that I really like but sometimes struggle to take is that you can just write garbage dialogue. When I'm getting lost in semantics about one line needing to be perfect, I just write some kind of filler dialogue and I'll highlight it a different color. And I'll just give myself permission to say, that's temporary garbage dialogue and it's fine, but move on to the part of the scene that you do know how to write, and then we'll fix this later. And I do a lot of this in a program called Scrivener. Scrivener's really great for outlining. You can do that note card thing digitally, which I like because then I can write a scene and literally I can change the order. I can restructure things. There are lots of other screenwriting softwares and some of them might be better, but I'm used to this one and I don't like change. So Scrivener it is. The other biggest part of my writing process is not writing. One writer that I was listening to in a podcast called it background processing, which I think is a nice way to look at it. For me, once I have done the boring hard part and made myself do that, it is just as important that I take a little break and let my brain wander, because who knows where it will take me. Where is it taking me? Oh. Thanks so much for joining me for my very first vlog and for being my patron. This is really exciting to me, and I'm so touched that all of you want to support my career and help me do the writing thing that I was just talking about so that I can do the acting thing that I like the mostest. Thanks, guys. Bye.